We all have that one game. That one game we must have. For me, it was Oblivion. The first time I saw the game, it was on a demo disc that my dad gave me. It was a developer video where they showed off the physics of the objects and a little bit of the tutorial dungeon. To say the video blew my mind is a complete understatement. So, imagine my surprise when a week or two later, I found myself in an EB Games, that's a GameStop in Australia for those curious, staring at a poster advertising the pre-order of Oblivion. I begged my parents to get Oblivion for me as a late birthday present. I missed Morrowind, and I'd be damned if I was gonna watch Oblivion pass me by. To my shock, my parents actually agreed, and not only that, but they got me the upgraded collector's edition to boot. I think I almost cried right there in the store. Eventually the time came, and I had the game in my hands, and I was ready to rock and roll. I installed the game and booted it up. The menu. Lord, the menu. Oh, my excitement was already at a fever pitch. I clicked New Game, and I watched the amazing intro video with Patrick Stewart voicing the Emperor himself, just for those curious. I find myself at not only a loss for words when trying to describe the feeling of watching that cutscene. The back of my neck tingles and a smile crosses my face as I listen to Patrick Stewart speak and hear that music just swell. It's a true chef kiss moment. But soon the introduction is over, and then white. Nothing but white. Did the excitement of the game overload my brain and kill me? Was this pure white light heaven? No. No, it wasn't. That was my graphics card, throwing its hands in the air screaming, "Ah, hell no!" Turns out, in my pure overhyping brain, I forgot to check the system requirements of the game. Had I done that, I would have learned that my super old-ass graphics card wasn't even close to being able to run it on its lowest settings. I'd have to wait another month before being able to get something able to run it on its lowest settings. Look, I'll be honest with you. Even though Oblivion ran like hell and looked like a potato, I was indeed in heaven. I could go on more about my experience, but you aren't here to listen to me talk about my first time with Oblivion. No, you're here to listen to me talk about Oblivion for this series that I'm doing. Does Oblivion live up to the hype I felt back then? Did it prove to be a worthy successor to Morrowind? What did we gain? What did we lose? Why does my horse have armor? To answer all those questions and more, we need to take a good, long look at Bethesda's 2006 release of The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion. And, of course, I can't stress this enough, but there are massive spoilers for not only the story, but the guilds as well. You've been warned. And also, might I just say, you're looking rather radiant today. Do you have your bloom settings turned on, or is that just like a natural radiance or something? Either way, you look good. After one chef-kiss worthy cinematic I could never hope to do justice to, we dive directly into character creation. This time I created Lycan IV, a badass pirate chick hailing from Hammerfell. She's been around, she's seen things. She fears no man, woman, or child, of which there are none in this game, by the way. Children, I mean, not men and women. There's plenty of those, just no children. The only thing she fears is, well, that's a spoiler. After making sure our eyes are in the correct place, we are called upon by our prison friend, Valen Dreth, who makes fun of us and informs us that we're going to die down here in our cell. Man, prison life is hard. However, footsteps and voices approach our cell. This is none other than Emperor Uriel Septim VII and his personal blade bodyguards. It seems assassins have killed the Emperor's children, and now soon will be arriving to kill him. However, he is fleeing, and I assume going into hiding for his own protection or something. And as luck would have it, his secret escape tunnel is in our cell. And because of this, we are granted freedom. The Emperor also informs us that he's seen our face in his dreams and allows us to follow him and the Blades. As we travel through the secret tunnels, we are suddenly attacked by a group of hooded assassins. In the attack, one of 3 Blades is sadly struck down and killed. It's at this point we split up. The Emperor and his Blades go one way, and we go our other. This moment here will act as our tutorial, as we will learn to use lockpicking, looting, magic, fighting, and more. In time, our path with the Emperor and his Blades will cross again, and it's at this point the Emperor will take us aside and drops a bit of a bombshell on us. He believes that today is the day he will die. He is sadly proven correct, as later, after another ambush, he pulls us aside once more, hands us his amulet, known as the Amulet of Kings, and tells it to bring it to a man named Joffrey, and that he will know how to find the Emperor's lost, hidden son. And then, Emperor Uriel Septim VII, the man we met and saved back in Arena, the man who set us off on our journey in Daggerfall, and the man who freed us from prison in Morrowind, is assassinated. His last words to us were to close shut the jaws of Oblivion. I can't even do that justice whatsoever. Patrick Stewart, ah man, you're one of a kind, for real. Holy hell. After the chaos has ended, Boris, now the last of the Blades in the group, informs us that the Amulet of Kings is very special, and that it can only be worn by the Septim bloodline, which is true. If we actually try to put it on, we can't equip it. We're also told that if we are to seek out Joffrey, who as it turns out is the Grand Master of the Blades, we must find a place called Waynon Priory. And after a quick little romp around the sewers, we're set loose upon the world. Remember this moment. If you are unaware of it right here, this moment is, without a shadow of a doubt, burned into the minds of all Oblivion players. And if I'm not mistaken, it's also the very beginning of Bethesda's trend. I like to call it that welcome to the world shot. I'm pretty sure Oblivion is the first time that they actually did this and would just repeat it from here on out in every game they do. Sorry, I'll continue with the story. After traveling to Waynon Priory and meeting Joffrey, giving him the Amulet of the Kings and explaining our situation, Joffrey begins to open up to us. First, it would seem that the Emperor was aware of some sort of threat, and that with his death, the Dragonfire would go out for the first time in centuries. The only way to reignite the Holy Flame with the special power is with the Amulet of Kings. However, what that threat is, we don't know. Second, many years ago, the Emperor handed Joffrey a baby and told him to take it somewhere safe. This baby, it would seem, is the son the Emperor told us to find. His son's name is Martin, and Martin right now is the rightful Emperor of Tamriel. So, with these two things combined, we must seek out Martin, crown him the Emperor, and have him reignite the dragon fire with the amulet to protect the realm from whatever danger Oblivion poses. Whew. Okay, have you got that? Good. As luck would have it, Martin is a priest at the Chapel of Akatosh located in the city of Kvatch. So, it's time to hit the road and head for Kvatch, and get Martin to return with us to Joffrey. On the road to Kvatch, we're stopped by a man screaming for us to run. He hastily tells us that Kvatch was under attack by Daedra as portals to Oblivion have opened up. Hold on a second. Holy shit! The man from... Oh my god, the man from Tribunal, that cult leader. The guy was right all along, I can't believe it. How? My god. Okay, alright, sorry, enough with the dramatics. Okay, anyway, we make haste to Kvatch, running past the encampment of refugees and up the winding road. The sky grows darker the closer we get. Before long, we are greeted by a small group of the town guards and a gigantic portal. After a quick skirmish, we talk with the acting captain of the guard, and it would seem that Martin and a group of other survivors are trapped in the city along with the Count of Kvatch. To save the people, we must gather our courage and step inside the portal to Oblivion and find some way to shut it down. Seas of lava as far as the eye can see. The smell of sulfur and death fill the heated air all around us. This is Oblivion, the realm of the Daedra. We must battle our way through the hordes of monsters here in Oblivion to ascend a spire. At the top of this spire is a sigil stone, which acts as the power source holding the portal open. Once we remove the sigil stone, the gateway to Oblivion will shut down and somehow exit us from the realm of Oblivion and doesn't leave us trapped there. Maybe because we're holding the sigil stone? I think we're meant to overlook that part. Anyway, I won't lie. It's tough work fighting our way to the top of the spire. The Daedra aren't foes to take lightly. But once we reach the top and rip out the sigil stone, a bright beam of light shoots into the sky, and in a flash of light, we find ourselves back in Kvatch. The portal to Oblivion is now closed, though this isn't the time to celebrate, however. We must now push our attack into the city and to the Chapel of Akatosh to save the survivors. Once inside the chapel, we meet up with some more of the city guard and a group of survivors. Some of the guards escort the survivors to safety, while the rest of us prepare to make our final push to the castle and rescue the Count and free Kvatch from this siege. The fights are tough, but we eventually battle our way inside the castle, and with a few fights here and there, we find the Count of Kvatch, who is sadly killed. But with that, Kvatch is freed. We report the news to the captain of the guard of the Count's death, and now it's time for us to return to the refugee camp and see if Martin was indeed in that group we saved. And thankfully, he was. We speak with Martin and hit him with a truth bomb. He is the son of the now dead king, which now makes him the new king. And you know what? Man, he takes it like a champ. Good on you, Martin, for real, man. If I just found out that, I mean, my father was the emperor, and not only that, but he was assassinated, and now I am the rightful ruler of, Tamriel. It's like, I think my brain would melt, but Martin's just kind of like, yeah. Yeah, I'm the emperor now. Okay, sure, whatever. Anyway, do you have like dinner plans set for us traveling down the road? Because man, I'm really hungry. That's like the first thing on his mind, Oh God. Anyway, it's time for us to head back to Joffrey, but he and the other monks at Wayne Priory have been attacked by the same group who killed the emperor. It seems they attacked to steal the amulet, which they succeeded in doing. However, with Wayne Priory now no longer safe to stay at, Joffrey suggests we hide out at a place called Cloud Ruler Temple, which, as it turns out, is a hidden fortress. Well, I say hidden. I mean, you could clearly see it, but hidden fortress for the Blades. So, we hop, skip, and jump our way over to Cloud Ruler Temple, which I could say the trip was a good one, but it wasn't. Martin, man, he hogs all of the bed sheets, and Joffrey is just awful at telling scary campsite stories. It's just awful. He ruins the ending to like everything, like the killer was inside the house at the, like he's terrible. He ruins every story. It's just awful. Anyway, once at Cloud Ruler Temple, we're welcomed with opened arms, and everybody is excited to have Martin here. And after he gives everybody a speech, I am named Night Sister of the Blades, which, man, that sounds kind of cool, actually. That sounds pretty sweet. Anyway, it's truly about time that somebody recognized my awesomeness. I tell you what, man. Anyway, our next job is to head back to the Imperial City, where we meet up with our good old pal Boris, who, with any luck, has learned something about the Assassins. What we learn is that this group is called the Mythic Dawn, who worship the Daedric Lord Mehrunes Dagon. We also learn two other things. First, that the group's leader is a high elf called Mankar Cameron, and the second is the location of their base with this really cool map, but at the same time, I mean, look, let me just say this. If I was the leader of a very dangerous cult, I wouldn't be leaving clues like the map. I mean, you can see it even without it being lit up. Anyway, it's not the point. Boris returns to Cloud Ruler Temple, and we head off to the Mythic Dawn base. Once there, we pose as a new member of the cult and try to learn out as much as we can about their plans and try to get the amulet back as well. Only my game crashed like 5 times here for some reason, and I just got sick of trying to infiltrate the base, so I just killed everybody on my I just beelined it and killed everybody. And if you ask me, that's as good as planned as anything, I'll tell you, man. Whew. Jokes aside, we were meant to come here and steal the book known as the Mysterium Xarxes. I hope I got that right. And that was written by Dagon himself, by the way, and that Mankar Cameron is helping Dagon destroy the world, and in turn, he gets his own realm known as Paradise, where he can take over the world, well, take over that realm, and he promises that all the followers of the Mythic Dawn will be rewarded in his paradise, and live forever, much like the Daedra do. I mean, look, it's a little more complex than that, but either way, he needs to be stopped. So, we grab the book, but Mankar flees into paradise before we can get the Amulet of Kings. We return the book to Martin, who now sends us on like a quest to gain a Daedric artifact. I already had one on me, so I just handed him that one. Next, we must go down to Bruma and close the Oblivion portal, which just opened up in front of the city. It was easy enough to close, but it won't be the last one we close. You see, while completely optional to do so, we must now go to each city on the map and shut down an Oblivion portal that opened there. That means going to Oblivion 6 more times. Why are we doing this? Because we need to get into paradise. Martin must have a powerful sigil stone, and the only way to get one is to actually let the Mythic Dawn open a massive Oblivion gate in front of Bruma, so we can go inside, take the stone, and close the gate at the same time. But for that to happen, Bruma wants more guards to defend the town while the Oblivion gate is open. So that's why we need to go city to city, closing each of their Oblivion gates, so they have the troops to spare to go to Bruma. Okay? Got that? Good. Oh. Anyway, we need to get our hands on some other items that Martin needs. Open the massive Oblivion portal, have a big war, bust inside the gate, steal the stone, and return to Martin, who now opens a portal to paradise. Holy crap, that was a lot. Oh man, condensing the story, jeez. Anyway, but our wacky adventure isn't over yet, because we must hunt down Cameron. Cameron? Anyway, kill him and get back the Amulet of Kings. So, it's off to paradise. And you know what? It's actually kinda nice here. If you're a Daedra who loves killing weak, pathetic humans who never die. Yep, you heard that right. It would appear that paradise isn't all it's cracked up to be, and the followers in the cult aren't rewarded with like a sunny beach and cool margaritas on a beach, you know what I mean? No, they're actually rewarded with pain for all eternity, forced to be playthings for the Daedra who roam in paradise. But for Cameron, it is paradise. He has all he ever wanted. But for this madman, his playtime is over, and we are forced to kill him to take the amulet and return back to Martin. But what we return to isn't so pretty. The Oblivion crisis has reached its boiling point, and Martin, some guards, and myself must battle our way through the Imperial City to reignite the dragon fire, so the whole world can be protected again. And let me tell you, it was tough. On top of fighting the hordes of Daedra that roamed the city, and the crashes, the innocent people being killed in the streets, I mean, it was brutal. Their screams and shouts for help, the desktop crash sound, the flames crackling, the constant sound of clanging metal, buildings collapsing, it was intense. And as we fought our way ever closer to the temple to reignite the fire, the ground begins to shake as Mehrunes Dagon himself stomps around the city, killing everything in his path. But we don't have time to think about it as we run past him to try and ignite the fires. Only it's too late. With Dagon himself already in this plane of existence, all hope is lost. However, Martin runs forward, shatters the amulet, and transforms into an avatar of Akatosh. And as a massive dragon, does battle with Dagon. The two exchange blows, but Martin is too strong and kills Dagon, banishing him back to the realm of Oblivion. But the battle was just too much for him, and Martin turns to stone. His noble sacrifice saved the world. We are named the champion of Cyrodiil. Red sky turns blue, happy ending. Or is it? You see, with Martin's death, there is no longer an heir to the throne. This means that there will be hard times ahead for the whole world. Oh well, what's the worst that could happen? Seriously, what's the worst that could happen? Really, I mean, think about it. Nothing. It'll be fine. All we care about is kicking up our feet and resting next to our fireplace. The end. Oh man, what a story. I mean, I didn't do it justice whatsoever, but for anybody who has played the game, you understand how fun it can be. However, there are indeed some downsides, like constantly going into Oblivion to shut down the gates. But overall, I mean, I had a good time. I really feel like we were constantly 2 steps behind the Mythic Dawn, and no matter what we did to catch up, it just wasn't enough. It always made the tension feel a little bit higher, but that wraps up the story. So let's dive on over to gameplay now, shall we? Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm actually not a PNG image. I know, it's shocking to hear, so I'll just give you a moment to let that sink in. Okay, with that truth bomb causing mass hysteria, let me tell you the reason this video is so long, if you haven't noticed. It's because I actually took the time to play through not only every single guild in the game, but, well, practically like every quest, and the expansions for the game as well. I have a lot to talk about here, and I couldn't fit everything in, and I had to leave out, like, a ton of stuff. Still, I hope I'm able to not only convey what I want to say, but do it in a way that maybe makes you think, I hope. Anyway, strap yourself in, because here we go. Up first is the guilds. Like Daggerfall and Morrowind before it, Oblivion has guilds that you're able to join. There are a total of 5. The Fighters Guild, Mage Guild, Thieves Guild, Dark Brotherhood, and the Arena. Which of these you want to join is completely up to you. I personally joined and completed every single one. I'd love to take the time to break each of these down in deep detail. In fact, I actually did. And that ended up being close to almost 22 pages long. And for a reference, no script I have ever done for these videos has ever gone over 15 pages in total. So 22 pages on just the guilds alone was pretty insane. So I boiled them all down for you in the order that I completed. And I won't go in depth with their stories, just in case you actually do want to play Oblivion for yourself and experience something for yourself. Anyway, the Fighters Guild. If you love bashing some skulls in and making some money, well, I have the place for you at the Fighters Guild. Not only will you get to crush your enemies underfoot, but also get paid for doing so. And if that wasn't enough, it also helps out the common folk. Joining the Fighters Guild is pretty simple. You just pop in, ask if they're hiring, and wouldn't you know it, they are, because everybody in town tells you that they're hiring. Anyway, the story of the Fighters Guild is actually pretty great. First, you'll start doing odd jobs here and there, but soon you'll begin to notice the rise of another group called the Blackwood Company. These guys do dirty deeds and they do them dirt cheap. Eventually, you'll learn the truth about this rival group, and it'll be up to you to stop them. I really don't have any notes for the Fighters Guild. I think the guild has a very interesting story, and some of the quests for it are pretty good, especially the I can't remember his name. He was an orc. He's like a noble orc. That was hilarious. And also the goblin quest. If you know that quest, you know. Anyway, that's all I have to say about the Fighters Guild. It's good. It's actually quite good. So let's take a look at the arena next. Ever wanted to hear people cheer your name? Do you want to entertain the masses? Do you like killing and have no fear of death? Well then, I think I know a place you can go. So, the arena isn't much of a guild as it is a series of battles. You start out as a nobody before working your way through the arena, up the ranks, and eventually becoming the new champion of the arena. And by working, I do mean mercilessly killing people. There is a side quest here that ties sort of into the arena, and that's you can do a quest for the Grand Champion where you help him uncover the truth about his lineage. Completing this quest will actually have an impact on your fight with him at the end. For me, the arena isn't the best. I truly believe it needed far more story to, or even quests. Like, for example, I think having a rival on the other team that's also working their way to the top like you are, but something seems fishy with them and you're tasked with like getting to the bottom of their power, and it would turn out like that they're cheating to win or something like that, and you have to like, I don't know, expose them or something. I think a mission like that would just make Arena feel, I don't know, a little cooler. It just needed a little extra spice, a little pizzazz. And as it stands, it is a little on the bland side, and it's not at all a high point of Oblivion. At least not for me it isn't. If you like it, hey man, you love it. That's perfectly up to you. You also get everybody's favorite punching bag, the Adoring Fan, as your, I guess, reward for finishing the arena. Listen, I have to be real with you on this. The Adoring Fan never, ever actually bothered me at all. Over the years, I've noticed that he's like become the butt of like every Oblivion joke. People seem to actually hate this guy and make him out to be some like insanely annoying person. And honestly, coming back to this game after all these years, I thought I should actually prepare myself for the worst, because I couldn't remember what he was like. I didn't remember him being that annoying. And he isn't that annoying. In fact, he isn't really anything. So I have to ask, what do you personally think about the Adoring Fan? Do you love him? Hate him? Or are you just like me and you're just not bothered by him? He's just there. He's got nothing to do with anything. He exists. That's it. Anyway, look, onto the Mages Guild. Let's be honest. Setting your enemies on fire and watching them scream and run around is pretty cool. But what happens when that begins to lose its luster? Where will you go to learn how to freeze your enemies, or perhaps call down thunderbolts from the sky? I've got 2 words for you. Mages Guild. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You too could learn the secret of walking on water, summoning allies from the void, or even turning invisible. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Just by joining the Mages Guild. Okay, there you go. There's the Mages Guild pitch out of the way. In the Mages Guild, you will travel to each major city and help those guilds in hopes of earning a recommendation. Once you have the recommendation, you can then join the Arcane University. When you're finally in the university, you'll begin to slowly see the rise of a group of necromancers. What do they want? Well, let's just say they're following orders from an old friend, and that you need to stop them. I actually feel the Mages Guild, while good, but actually, it was better than good. It was great. Okay, look, the Mages Guild is great, but I really feel like it had the potential to be even better. I can't really dive too deep into it without spoiling the storyline of the actual guild itself, but I personally feel that the final mission could have hit much harder if they changed just a few things around. It's so annoying. I wanna explain. God, that sucks. Look, doesn't matter. I just think it could have hit harder. I think it had potential of being even better. Like, for example, maybe it could have had like a branching storyline. Like maybe you could have joined the necromancers and ignore the college. Does that make sense? Like it could have been better if like you could see both sides. I know that seems weird, but look, overall, the Mages Guild is good, okay? It just could have been a little better, okay? That's all I'm saying. It's really good. Could have been better. Do you ever get the urge to just shank the pirate down on the waterfront who's always singing? You just want to go back to your shack and sleep, but every time you pass by, it's just, oh hey, sweet lady of Wayrest, oh hey, sweet lady of mine. Every time. And each time you pass by, does your bloodlust rise? Until one day you really will strike him down, and when you do strike him down, you actually kind of feel like really good about it, and so you just keep on going, you just start killing everybody around. Look, if you feel that way, you might be a shoo-in for the Dark Brotherhood. When people talk about Oblivion, and talk about the guilds, they bring up how awesome the Dark Brotherhood questline was. And that is for good reason. Each quest has you planning out your next move carefully, but not only that, you can do them pretty much however you want. Do you want to kill silently? Do you want to aim for the bonus, make it look like an accident? Do you want to go in without a care in the world, just hacking and slashing your way through everything? Well, you can. Most of the Dark Brotherhood's questlines are just... they're just gems. Especially the Housed Guest quest. I'm pretty sure it has a name, but... it's the party one, the one with all the guests. I truly feel like the Dark Brotherhood is just perfect. The whole way it is. The story is great. The twists and turns are great. The characters are great. Whoever wrote the story and the quests for the Dark Brotherhood was just having an absolute blast doing it. And I'll bet you anything you'll love playing it. If you have never, ever played Oblivion, and better yet, you have no clue about anything in the Dark Brotherhood story, boot up the game and go for it, because you will not regret it. I promise. Look, I could go on and on about how great the Dark Brotherhood is, but I won't, because we have one more guild left, the Thieves Guild. Stealing things like, say, pillows can bring a rush. And actually, there's no pillows in Oblivion. I just realized that. I just realized there's no pillows in Oblivion. Ah, shit. Oh well. You steal something once, and that's fine. But you soon find yourself going door to door, stealing anything that just isn't nailed down, unless you have a hammer, in which case you steal those nails as well. If this sounds like something you like to do, you may want to join the Thieves Guild. I'll be honest, the first half of the Thieves Guild isn't overly memorable, at least it wasn't for me. Sure, you do rob from the rich, give to the poor, or Robin Hood style, but it never really stuck with me. The second half, however, did stick with me. It goes from petty thefts to, like, Ocean 11 type heists, and that is where the Thieves Guild truly shines. And it holds up for replay value. Anybody who knows the story of the Thieves Guild knows what I'm talking about. When you start a new game and go back into the Thieves Guild, you just start to, like, see things and put things together. However, I want to take a step back for a moment and talk about that first act. I really feel like that could have been better. If when robbing from the rich, the whole point of it is to help the people on the waterfront. That's a district just outside of the Imperial City. You're helping the people down there. And when you steal things, you're kind of like giving back to the community. Kind of like Robin Hood, like I said. I really feel like what could have made that just really make that shine is if the more quests you do for the Thieves Guild in that first half, the more money you put into the Thieves Guild, more things will happen on the waterfront, like shops will open or more houses are built, you know, like maybe, for example, let's just say you're down on the waterfront and there's somebody down there who, if you talk to them, they're like, I used to have a shop in the Imperial City at some point, but, you know, due to corruption, I couldn't pay my taxes, and they took my shop away. And maybe that shop is still up in the Imperial District. Like, maybe it could have been, like, once Jensen's shop, or the feed bag, or whatever. Whatever, it could have been any of those things. But let's just say there is a person on the waterfront who did once have a life, and then, once you do more quests for the Thieves Guild, gain more money, that person will eventually, like, open up a shop on the waterfront. Like, a new shop is built, or whatever. I know that there's stuff at the end of the Thieves Guild, like, you actually get, like, a guild headquarters or whatever, but I really feel like it could have been better. Like, more houses could have been built, more people could have moved into the waterfront, or I don't know. I just feel like I really like when games make you feel like you're really making a difference in the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can actually see a tangible change from your effects. Look, I do know that is probably absolutely impossible to have done, but I really do feel like something like that really could have given that first part more meaning. Do you know what I mean? Like, that it's little things like that could make something go from good to great to amazing. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, overall, the Thieves Guild was fine at the start, but it really shines towards the end. And actually, when it does kind of, like, ramp up, it's over before you even realize. Do you know what I mean? Except for the last heist. That actually goes on for quite a while, but that's not the point. The Thieves Guild is good, could have been better. We'll just leave it at that. At the end of the day, this is just my opinion, and far be it for me to say what is or isn't fun for you. If you loved all of the guilds and you loved them with all of your heart, and you see no flaws, and they couldn't be any better, that's amazing. I think that's fantastic. And heck, if you hate the guilds, that is also fine. Games are deeply personal. Nobody should ever color your opinion on them. Not even me. Never forget that. I really did enjoy them. I really did. But I know from Morrowind that they could have done more. Think back to the Morag Tong or the Great Houses. Some of those quests are really great. Maybe that's just me though. I might be alone on that opinion. But we still aren't done talking about the guilds. No. There is one thing I need to address, and sadly, this might be where you hit that dislike button so hard it breaks your friggin' mouse. Prepare yourselves. Okay, just hear me out though, okay? Whenever I hear Elder Scrolls fans talk about the Elder Scrolls, they seem to be broken into two camps. One that loves Daggerfall and Morrowind, and dislike the changes made to later games, or those who love the modern games and dislike the older ones. I mean, yeah, okay, there's like more variety in there, but just for the sake of argument, bear with me. It's a tricky situation to navigate. But I have to be open and honest, so screw it. I'm gonna dive headfirst and hope I don't crash into the rocks below. In Daggerfall and Morrowind, guilds had a strict system requirement for you to rank up within those guilds. Not only did you need to do the task handed to you, but you had to prove your character's skill with skill levels. When you were in the Fighters Guild, you had to, level up your combat-related skills. And it's the same with the Mages Guild. When you join them, you raise magic-related skills, and the Thieves Guild, of course. This added an element of roleplay, which, in my opinion, is great. That's the whole point of RPG, role-playing game. Anyway, another thing is that chances are if you joined one of those guilds and advanced far enough, you wouldn't be allowed to join other guilds, or, you kind of like made people hate you, you know what I mean? Like if you joined I think if you joined the Mages Guild, the Temple hated you, or something like that. Like, people wouldn't talk to you. They refused to talk to you. You couldn't do business with them. You couldn't barter with them. You couldn't even bribe them. They'd just be like, piss off. You know what I mean? Just get out of here. I don't want to talk to you, you stinking, filthy mage. But anyway, I think that added replay value. And that is even better. Oblivion removed those requirements. You could lack all skills required and still rise through the ranks and become the leader of any or all of the guilds. For example, I didn't learn to cast... Well, I didn't learn or cast any magic before joining the Mages Guild, except if you count vampire skills. I became a vampire, spoiler. The only spell I did cast were within the Mages Guild was 3 spells which were actually part of a mission that you had to do. I know why this choice was made, and it was even stated by Bethesda themselves. It's to make the franchise more accessible to more people. I understand that, but for me personally, I wasn't a big fan. However, I still accepted the changes. It didn't make me turn off the game, uninstall it, and toss the CD into the microwave. Yeah, it sucks, and yes, I miss the stricter requirements, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, Bethesda wanted to open up their franchise for more people to buy and play, and it worked. Anybody who was around when this game dropped will know how big it was and how much it impacted future games within its genre. But I still wish there was some sort of requirement, and just not nothing. For example, the Thieves Guild really does require you to steal things in order to unlock the next set of missions. You needed to steal and fence a certain amount of value. And that's good. It didn't ruin anything. It didn't block anybody from joining the Thieves Guild. It worked. The Dark Brotherhood is the same. It sort of requires you to kill an innocent person. But if you're like me and you actually did the arena mission, the arena quest, it actually triggers when you kill the Grey Prince, so there you go. Spoiler. I don't know why it does that, but it does. Anyway, did it ruin anything? No, it worked. The game should have had some more of these types of changes to even, like, let's say the Mages Guild should have you have some sort of skill level, even if it's like really low. For example, have a skill level of at least like 30 in 2 or 3 fields of magic. That would have blocked anybody not casting magic, but still been high enough so that not much effort is required to rank up those skills and join the Mages Guild if you wanted to later on. That small change would have been nice enough for me. I wasn't a fan of being a leader of every guild as well. I personally wish that if by joining a faction, it would have blocked others, or perhaps maybe opened up a different side of those quests. For example, let's say you joined the Dark Brotherhood, right? And then you go down to join the Mages Guild, but they know who you are and what you've done and refuse to let you in. But as you're leaving the Arcane University, maybe somebody stops you and says, hey, I hear you want to join the Mages Guild, but those uptight guys won't let you in. Maybe you should join the Necromancers instead. And that way, you're still able to train your magical abilities, but you're able to see, like, another side of the Mages Guild storyline. To me, that would have just added immense replay value, because it would have been, different, Next time you'd want to see how actually joining the Mages Guild affected that storyline. That would have been good. I know, again, that would be completely impossible at the time, but you can't tell me that doesn't sound awesome, And at the end of the day, when all is said and done, while I still enjoy the guilds in Oblivion, and personally will never forget how cool they were, however, removing pretty much all the requirements made my adventure just feel a little shallow, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's the guilds done. I hope I didn't just piss off everybody, but I gotta be honest, that's the whole point of these videos. But anyway, let's talk about the side quests super quickly. Oblivion had some fantastic side quests, and much like with Oblivion, I'll pick like a few to showcase. There was one, it's a fun one actually. It's like you go into this town and you find out about like a paranoid guy, and he's got like these weird paranoid delusions, but are they actually delusions? Or has he stumbled onto something here? Well, you'll have to find out. Another super good quest is actually completely hidden, and most people, people I spoke to didn't even know about it back in the day, and when I told them about it, they were like, what? You know what I mean? Anyway, that one is with, there's like an inn, and it's, when you go to sleep in it, it's like a converted ship, and when you go to sleep in that inn, it triggers the quest. It's really cool. It's even better to just stumble upon. So it's the ship down by the water, on the waterfront, if you're interested. A very unique quest, which part of me kind of wishes was a little bit longer, was the Painted World quest, where you actually enter into a painting, and that was very cool. I never forgot about that quest, and I still think about it, to be completely honest. Another quest is, it's an invisible town, and you stumble in there, and everybody, it looks like the town's abandoned, but it's actually filled with people, but they're all invisible, and it's a whole thing, and it's really cool. And actually, while on the topic of quests, there was one quest that completely bugged the hell out for me, and that was one where I helped an old man kill some slaughterfish in order to retire. It's a thing. That sounded weird, but it's a thing, okay? At first, it was fine. I jumped into the water, I killed one or two, but then I noticed I couldn't find any more of them. I even used the detect life spell and nothing. I ran up and down that place. I even went out of the area where they should have been, like into the different rivers. I looked around everywhere and I could not find these friggin' fish. I was so confused. And then I was walking back to the beginning of the lake, and then I got sidetracked and I noticed something. And it has to be seen to be believed. It's on screen right now, right? I was walking through, then I noticed something, and lo and behold, there was a fish just outside of the water, up a hill, just continuing further and further away. I did kill it eventually, but, I mean, look how far it traveled from the actual lake it was supposed to be in. I never did find the rest of the fish for this mission. I think I killed maybe like 4 or 5 of them, and I just had to give up. And especially after seeing the fish outside of the lake. And what's funny is, this wasn't the first or last time I encountered that bug. I never encountered it back in the day, but for some reason, when I played Oblivion now, it's actually quite prominent, or the fish just flip-flopping outside of the lake, but anyway, there's also that one quest that seems innocent at first, but eventually turns nasty, and that's the Nirnroot quest. I still dread Nirnroot to this day. My hands tremble and I break out into a cold sweat anytime somebody utters the word. Ooh, Nirnroot. But seriously, for those of you who don't know the Nirnroot quest, when you pick up a Nirnroot for the first time, that's these little glowing plants, you'll be given a quest to track down somebody who can tell you more about the glowing plant. Eventually, you find the person, and you're asked to collect like 10, which is no big deal, but soon you have to collect like 100 of the little buggers. And for anybody interested, yes, I collected all 100, and I will never do it again. Twice was enough for me. I did it the first time I played Oblivion, and for this review, and that's perfectly enough for me, thank you. I never want to see a Nirnroot ever again. Anyway, that's enough of those quests. There's plenty more in the game, even Daedric-related quests, but if you do play the game, I want you to go out there and just find them and experience them for yourself and just have a good time. I don't want to spoil everything for you. Oh, heavens. Anyway, I can't think of a better place to do this, so this might as well be the time I talk about it, because I really need to get I really need to get organization going for these videos. Anyway, I think it's time we talk about the 2 expansions of the game. And before I do that, let me just quickly say that horse armor is still a silly joke, and I really need to ask everybody right now, did you get the horse armor when it first came out? And if you did, what was your honest thought about it? I am super curious to hear about that. But anyway, let's move on. After hearing about an attack on a chapel in the city of Anvil, I decided to look into it. It seemed that this was no ordinary attack, but instead the beginning of something larger. The return of an ancient evil known as Umaril the Unfeathered. It was believed this evil was vanquished long ago by a great hero, but it seems that somehow Umaril has cheated death. And it's now up to us to travel across the lands, visiting each way shrine and gaining their blessings so that we may become a holy knight. It took a little bit, but in time I did what was required, and I got each of the blessings I needed. After waiting for a little while, I was scared half to death by a loud, booming voice congratulating me. And it would turn out that this was a vision of the very hero who ages ago struck down and killed Umaril. He was aware that Umaril had returned and tells us that the only way to combat him is with his old armor. So, we must now go travel the world again and go through a series of challenges to prove our worth. In time, I found all the pieces, and I collected the armor and the sword, and I was ready to fight Umaril. I teamed up with some other holy knights, and we battled our way through some ruins until I was face to face with Umaril. We had a bit of a skirmish, and I struck him down, but sadly, to fully kill him, I need to kill his spirit form as well. So, with the help of some blessings, my spirit left my body, ascended high above the world, where my spirit did spirit combat with Umaril's. And, after a short battle, I killed not only his body, but his spirit as well. And the world was saved. The end. That was a very rough and sped up version of the events of the expansion, Knights of the Nine. I did enjoy it, but the entire time I felt like something was off. I didn't like the pilgrimage at the first half, and I wasn't really a fan of getting the armor pieces right after it. You know what I mean? Like, you just traveled the world, now you travel the world again. For me, it felt a little padded, do you know what I mean? I know how this is going to sound, but I really wish both were kind of blended together, if that makes sense. Like, maybe Umaril's presence corrupted each of the shrines, or and battling them gains you a piece of the armor, or something like that. I kind of wish that I didn't have to travel the world and then immediately travel the world again. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just kind of wish they were blended together. I did like the second half, though, fixing up the base and recruiting all the knights. I wished for more of that. The ending battle was, of course, pretty fun as well. Still, like I said, there was just something off, and it might have been the length. It actually kind of was pretty short as well, and that feeling of the filler didn't help at all. It made it feel like if I wasn't traveling around, it just would have been really, really short. Overall, I'm torn how I feel about Knights of the Nine, especially when I compare it to the guilds of just the base game. I don't know, look, maybe I'm not alone. Knights of the Nine was fine. It really was. It's just, I don't know. I even writing this and speaking it, I don't know how I feel about Knights of the Nine. I really do feel like it was short and padded, and which made it worse. I don't know. Look, maybe like I said, maybe I'm alone, but either way, I'm going to move on to the Shivering Isles. Rumor has it that there is a very strange portal that appeared on a tiny island in the Nibbin Bay. The rumor seemed very interesting, if true. Curiosity eventually got the better of me, and I made my way to this island. The rumors were true. The island was indeed real, and the portal was there as well, standing in the middle of the island. It appeared to be made up of 3 stone faces smashed together with a purple swirling vortex in the mouth. As I got closer, a guard from a nearby city stopped me and warned me that people have been going inside, but when they came back out, they were insane. Still, with the warning in mind, I kept finding myself drawn to that vortex. Insanity must have already taken hold of me because, against my better judgment, I found myself stepping forward into that vortex. As I stepped through, I found myself in a room. A darkened room with a man sitting at a desk staring at me. I approached the man, who told me to take a seat. I did as I was told and sat down. The man's name was Haskell, and he was the chamberlain to the Daedric lord Sheogorath. He explains that Sheogorath created a doorway into his realm as nothing more than an invitation to any curious enough to step through. It seems Sheogorath was looking for a champion, but for what reason, Haskell couldn't even guess. I offered my services as trying to be the champion, and Haskell vanished, and the room exploded into butterflies, and I'm left standing in a very strange place. The realm, though strange, still holds a deep beauty, and I found myself in awe. Say what you will about the Daedra, but they sure know how to make an awesome realm to call home. I, however, wasn't here to take in the sights. I was here to meet up with Sheogorath, and to do that I had to pass through a gateway, which was guarded by a hulking, towering abomination of a creature known as the Gatekeeper. Fighting him was by no means an easy task. In fact, for me, he was almost invincible. Each wound I inflicted seemed to almost heal instantly. I needed help. I asked around the nearby town, which was not as easy as it would appear, because everybody here was quite insane. Although, I suppose to them, I was the one who appeared insane. Who's to say they were wrong? Perhaps I am. I need to be a little insane to do what I was about to do. You see, from what I could gather, the only weakness to the Gatekeeper was the tears of his own mother. Yes, you heard that right. The tears of his mother. Thankfully, getting the tears was easy enough. After I stole her handkerchief, I coated my blade with her tears and began my attack on the Gatekeeper. This time, the battle was even, and his wounds didn't close thanks to the tears, and in time, the brute succumbed to his injuries and fell. Haskell appeared to congratulate me, and told me Sheogorath was waiting for me in his capital city of New Sheoth. To get to him, I had to pass through one of two gateways. The first was to the land of Mania, and the second to the land of Dementia. Both look different, but still lead to the same location. And for those curious, I picked Mania. The new location was lush and green, and would have been rather pleasant, if not for all the horrible new monsters trying to eat me. Eventually, after what felt like hours of exploring, I made my way to the city of New Sheoth. The place was grim, and filled with the ramblings of the insane. I met plenty of people in the city, each as crazy as the last. For example, I met a man who wanted me to kill him, so I did as any sane person would do in my shoes. I pushed him off a high ledge to the ground below. Now, you might argue and say I did indeed kill this man, but I would say that it wasn't my fault he couldn't fly. Wait, hold on. Am I? No, I'm not going insane. I pushed all the voices aside and continued on my way to the castle, where I finally met with the Prince of Madness himself, Sheogorath. He explained that he'd been looking for a champion to stop something called the Grey March. But before explaining what it was, he sent us off to do a task. Skipping ahead a little bit, after finishing said quest, I was to meet with the Duke and Duchess of New Sheoth. Each one holds a part of the city which they call their own, but each part of the city that they owned was different. The part of the city we were in was Mania, ruled by the Duke. It was a depressing, dull, and lifeless city. The other was Dementia, ruled of course by the Duchess. It was a bright and vibrant city filled with people overflowing with bliss. And it doesn't matter which side you're on, because everybody is still cuckoo bananas. As we progressed, we began to encounter new creatures called the Knights of Order. It's explained by Sheogorath that these are here because there's a being called Jigalag, who is slowly trying to take over the realm and bring it to order. Sheogorath tells us not to worry about it yet, but instead to go and kill either the Duke or the Duchess and take their place. I picked the Duke, I poisoned him and took his place. However, now wasn't the time to celebrate my newfound position, because the Knights of Order have already begun their assault in the fringes of the realm. I went there to stop them. And I gotta say, this mission was actually awful for me. For some reason, I had a really hard time fighting all of the enemies there. It wouldn't have been so bad if there was just like 2, maybe even 3 at a time, but sometimes I was fighting way more than that, and all by myself, and it kind of just fell apart, especially with Oblivion's combat, but I'll get back to that later. I'll put a pin in this. Eventually, I halted their progression, but they were still coming, so I returned to Sheogorath, who chooses now of all times to drop a truth bomb on me. He is Jiggalag. And he's not. He's also Sheogorath, who he isn't because he's Jiggalag, but he's not because he's Sheogorath. He's both. 2 sides of the same coin. He's been trying to get somebody's help to stop the Grey March from happening. But sadly, no matter what he did, it failed. And we have failed. And he will now turn in to Jiggalag and bring order to chaos and destroy everything. And with that, Sheogorath fades away and the Grey March begins. Haskell, however, has an idea. Using Sheogorath's staff, we could become the new Mad God and use our power to fight against Jiggalag. So, we do. Jiggalag and his forces attack the city, and we rush to its defense. A hardy battle ensues, and we beat Jiggalag, but we don't kill him. He explains that he did once rule this realm with perfect order, but one day the other princes feared his power, thus they cursed him with madness, turning him in to Sheogorath. He goes on to explain that once every era, he will return to his true form of Jiggalag, and then wipe the realm clean that Sheogorath had built, only to be doomed to repeat the cycle. He'll turn back into Sheogorath, destroy order, bring chaos, return to Jiggalag, bring order to the chaos, and repeat. However, this time, we broke the cycle, and he is free to roam the realms of Oblivion, and we are dubbed as the new Sheogorath, the Prince of Madness. And that's it! Haskell congratulated us on a job well done. Madness stays crazy. The end. Whew, man. Can I be honest with everybody here? I know I butchered the story, but believe me when I tell you that you're gonna want to play Oblivion just to play the Shivering Isles. There is so much to talk about in the Shivering Isles, but I'm not sure I got the sanity to explain it. Real talk though, for years I heard people, much like yourselves, telling me to go and play the Shivering Isles. They told me how awesome it was, and you're totally right. I mean, I'm no expert on the Elder Scrolls lore or anything, but after beating this, I wondered how the events of this would change the future of Sheogorath. Does he stay as Jiggalag, or does he turn back to Sheogorath? Or are we, the player, now Sheogorath going forward, and Jiggalag is now free to do whatever the hell he wants? I don't know. There's just so much for me to think about. Anyway, the Shivering Isles really is everything it's cracked up to be. I loved exploring the land, which oddly enough kind of reminded me of Morrowind's landscapes, which is weird. The quests and the people are really funny as well. The enemies are tough. Everything was just really good. It's a fantastic expansion. I might be skipping over some of the bad here, but I honestly don't remember anything bad happening. I mean, aside from that one quest where I was fighting like a stupid amount of the Knights of Order. Aside from that, it really was really good. To sum up, the Shivering Isles is fantastic, and traveling through its new lands was quite frankly funny and deadly at the same time, like a jester with a knife. With that out of the way, let's move on. Let's talk about the music in Oblivion, shall we? Because the soundtrack for Oblivion is nothing short of incredible. I don't care who you are or how old you are, you gotta love it. I've listened to the soundtrack for this game ever since the actual game came out. I truly love it. There is no better feeling than wandering around the world and hearing its music play. Especially when it's added to those like meme videos where it's like Oblivion conversations. Do you know what I mean? Like where they take real people and then just add that background music. I don't know why. That's just funny to me. Anyway, there isn't anything else to say about the music. It's amazing. I have nothing negative to say. Up next is the combat. I'm also going to tie in the leveling to combat as well. So there's that. So Oblivion takes the old numbers-based combat from the previous games and throws it right out the window, and gives us the more animation-based combat. Now, I'm actually not against this change. Sometimes we gotta deal with change, but a part of me has some issues with this combat. You level up skills the same way you did in previous games. Swing a sword over and over again, and eventually you'll rank up the sword skill. Simple and fair. Nothing wrong there. But what isn't so simple and isn't fair is the leveling in Oblivion. After you level up enough skills, you will level up, just like the other games. But here comes the problem. In Arena, Daggerfall, and Morrowind, enemies would slightly scale with you. The higher your level, the more powerful the enemies were. But it wasn't ever a problem. You started weak, got stronger as time went on, and could finally overcome any challenge. That's wonderful. But I think Bethesda might have taken the feedback from Morrowind's god tier leveling and how everyone broke the game and stuff, and then just took it too seriously. Because here in Oblivion, they go the opposite direction. The enemies level with you, as I said, and somewhere around level 10, I think, you soon find yourself fighting enemies that are way stronger than you, and it just keeps getting worse and worse the higher you go in levels. Enemies will have a crazy amount of health, deal out massive damage, and no matter what enchanting you have, it can't help you. Take the ogre, for example. The ogres were tough as nails, hit like trucks, and to top it off, had deep, complex emotional layers, much like the layered vegetable, lettuce. It got so bad for me that I actually just ended up trying my best to avoid combat. Hell, I even remember when it came out for the first time that back then I actually didn't level. I started replaying the game and stayed at level 1. That wasn't fun. That's a problem. But now before you go typing in the comments, yes, I'm sure there are mods out there to fix the problem. But remember, I'm not judging the game with mods. I'm judging it based on as close to launch as I could get the game. Combat in Oblivion got better, and it also got worse, and I'm kind of torn on how I feel about it. On the one hand, I don't mind animation, the animation-based combat, but on the other hand, I feel like I'm not getting powerful. From the lowest level of sword to the highest, nothing changes. You don't really deal more or less damage to the enemies. Take an enemy from when you're level 1 and you fight that enemy, and you're constantly chipping away at its health. That's fine for level 1, but as you get stronger, as you level, and you level up your sword skill or blunt weapon or what have you, eventually you'll be fighting level 20 enemies, and you yourself will be level 20. But the amount of damage you're doing is still the rough amount of damage you were doing at level 1. I mean, scaling added, of course. It just doesn't feel right. The combat in Oblivion just isn't right. It feels very wrong, very unfair, and just broken in its own way. I feel like it's a negative. It adds negative value to the overall experience of Oblivion. But that might just be me. I have no idea. Up next is... Oh, I unlearned it. Up next is character creation. I'll be short and sweet with this one, alright? Okay, let's be honest. The actual character creation in Oblivion is pretty dated. Graphics-wise, I mean. You could spend hours fine-tuning your little hero, but no matter what you do, you always end up looking like a potato. Not that that's a bad thing, mind you. I love potatoes. But one little addition I liked when it comes to creating your character is the actual little tutorial you get. You aren't just picking what you want to be ahead of time. You're actually given hands-on experience at the beginning of the game. And the game will pick what it thinks you're best at. So it's basically the quiz from previous titles, only rather than reading and answering, you're doing, if that makes sense. You are, of course, free to pick whatever you want at the end, and you're also given a chance to undo those choices. But at the end of the day, I really don't mind it. If I had to say one negative about it, is that you actually do have to do that tutorial beginning level. I wish you could skip it, if that makes sense. It would be great after the cutscene where you go into character creation. Just after character creation, it pops up and just says, "Would you like to skip?" You know what I mean? Like, something like that would just be a little bit better. And then if you skip it and you pick yes, then you exit the sewer, and then you can, like, pick all the traits you want to do. So I just think, like, skipping it would have an optional skipping would have been good to have. I just think that. So far, I feel like Morrowind did it right when it comes to the beginning and tutorials. I mean, you really are just jumping off the boat, picking a face, skills, collecting Fargoth's ring, and you're out the door. It's short and sweet. But there you go. That's all I really have to say about that. Oh, and if you were invested in the High Elf drama, no. He still didn't gain back his immunity to paralysis. He still doesn't have it. He's still crying in the corner somewhere. Sorry, High Elf, but try to stay in high spirits, okay? Try your best. Now, about 1,000,000 years ago, I said that our hero, Lycan the Fourth, feared only one thing. That, my friends, was the sun. Because, as I said earlier, I willingly became a vampire, just to see how it was. And how was it? Well, not so bad, actually. Let's talk about it, shall we? Vampires in Oblivion have some nice perks, such as getting a boost to skills, resistance against normal weapons, and even 100% resistance to paralysis and disease. You can also gain some new abilities to boot. However, there is a downside. You can take damage from the sun and fire-related spells or weapons, which makes sense, right? But honestly, that's it. I played through over half of the game. Like, I went through all of the guilds and I think some of the main story as a vampire. And it never really affected it. In fact, it didn't affect it whatsoever. I was able to get quests, talk to people, buy things, sell things, fast travel, unless I was taking sun damage, and so on. The biggest issue is going hungry. You see, as a vampire, you do need to drink blood, and the longer you go without it, the more powerful you become, but you start to take more damage from the sun and fire attacks. And trust me when I say being out in the sun really will begin to hurt. It can kill you really quick, and if that isn't bad enough, people will refuse to speak with you. But if you drink some blood, everything returns back to normal, or at least normal for a vampire. You can go back to talking to people, the sun will be fine, and that's it. Your appearance will change though, and progressively, as you starve, you'll become more monstrous the hungrier you are. The only issue I noticed was my face changed from a female to a male, and it wasn't even my own face. Like, it was like a random default male face, if that makes sense. This was a bug, and it can happen from time to time. I learned that afterwards, and there is a workaround if you use the console commands, if you're playing on PC, of course, but these didn't work for me personally, and actually removed my entire head. I wish I had the footage of it, but I don't. Long story short, it ended up corrupting my save file, and I had to return to like an older save from like hours previous just to have my own face back. As it stands, I never felt like there was much point in being a vampire. I'm sure for some it has a use, but even for me, as I was role-playing, I couldn't quite completely get into the role because I had the lack of reaction from people. Hell, at times I'd forget I was a vampire if it wasn't for the constant notifications that you need to drink blood. It would have been a little better if they were, if the downsides were slightly harsher, like not enough to stop you from progressing in the main storyline, mind you, but just enough to get like a proper reaction from people. Heck, there isn't even any vampire-related quests for you. Like, a vampire doesn't approach you and go, hey, come and join our vampire cult or something. Like, something like that would have been cool. There is a quest. I'm just pointing out to you an example here. There's a quest in the game where it turns out a vampire has killed somebody in town, and you need to join a group of vampire hunters to hunt this vampire down. Only you can do this mission as a vampire yourself, and it doesn't really affect anything. Do you see what I mean? I bet that these changes were done once again as a result for making it more accessible for a broader audience. I can only speak for myself on this, but even when I was completely new to games or the Elder Scrolls series, I personally would have loved deeper role-playing when it came to being a vampire. I did like the negative ramifications, but that's just me. It didn't bother me to become a vampire and then halfway through the story and get locked out of the story. It just means to me that's where my hero's journey ended. Do you know what I mean? That world was forever screwed after that point. So now I have to go back, start a new game as a new hero, and play through it again. Does that make sense? Am I thinking too deeply about this? I think I'm thinking too deeply about this. That's just my take on vampires. The vampires are fine, I guess. You can play as them, makes no real difference. Oh, and if you're, on a side note, if you were curious about werewolves, there is no werewolves in Oblivion. So I just thought I'd toss that out there. No Team Timothy. Sorry, there's no Team Timothy. Sorry, Team Timothy. If you're on Team Timothy, I'm sorry. There's nothing. There's no love for Team Timothy. Sorry. What else? Oh, there's the fame system in the game, but I personally feel like it honestly doesn't do much of anything, really. And if it had been taken out, nothing much would have changed, which is sad because I think a lot could have been done with it. More unique quests tied to each side of the fame. Like, if you have maybe particular characters in the game have their own, like, moral compass and would treat you differently. Like, for example, maybe there are two shopkeepers with the same product, and one of them makes you spend more on the item and the other one doesn't, because one of them respects your goodness while the other one thinks you're an idiot. Does that make sense? I guess I'm trying to say that this mechanic could have been pushed much harder, and right now, as it stands, you honestly could take it out and nothing really would change. But I think it's time to talk about another hot button issue, the quest marker. So, new to Oblivion is the quest marker. It will help you, the player, locate items or people of interest. It will guide you to the exact location and even tell you if the subject you're looking for is indoors or outdoors. This was, again, made to aid the player and help with accessibility. Now, none of this will be news to anybody, but the issue is older players of the franchise feel like this ruined part of the experience, and some players feel it was actually a necessity. I mean, that's oversimplifying it, but you get the rough idea. I actually put this out as a vote on Twitter and YouTube. I asked all of you your feelings on the subject. The votes were actually in favor of it. However, most of you who voted in favor also added that you would have liked it if there was some changes to it. What do I feel about it? Well, before I answer that, I want you to hear me out. While researching this topic and trying to formulate my own ideas, I came across a very interesting theory. That the reason it was added was indeed to help guide the player, but it was also actually to get around a very serious issue. What was the issue? Money and file size. See, Morrowind gave the player directions to places. Go north, turn left at the bridge, and if you see the hermit's hut, you've gone too far. Stuff like that. This is great for immersion, but it also kind of feels like real life before GPS could just be a pain at times. Oblivion, on the other hand, doesn't offer any direction, and if it does, it's very simplistic. It's believed the reason why this was done the way it was is because if you had the actor add the extra, "The farm is located southwest, keep going until you reach the river, follow the river north and you'll find the farm," that not only bloats the file size for the sound, but it also means you need to pay those voice actors more money. Oblivion was already pushing consoles and PC to their limits at the time. It was doing new things at that time as well, and Bethesda had to cut corners wherever they could. This theory seems very plausible in my eyes, and with that said, where do I fall upon the issue? I think the quest marker is needed. However, I agree 100% that it has to change. Maybe the ability to turn it off or on or only guide you to the rough location of the city or cave. I think in a perfect world, I would have loved the voice actors just telling me where to go with the directions, or getting around that and just saying, I'll write the directions down on this note, which then turns to updates in your journal or whatever. I think something like that could have gone a long way with both sides of the argument. Those who want a more Morrowind feel could disable the feature and rely more on the journal, and those who don't and just want to keep it, they can keep it. But again, that's in a perfect world, and heck, maybe there's a mod out there that does exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm judging it on the base game for what it was at the time and what it is today. What isn't deniable is the effect this feature had on not only Bethesda titles, but games as a whole. For better or for worse, that's for you to decide. The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion didn't just make waves when it was first released. It created tsunamis. To say the game was a big deal at the time is an absolute understatement. I loved it to death when I was younger. Was it flawless? No. I had bugs. Like, I actually remember one where it would just, like, the loading screen would just stop loading, and the only way to fix it was to crash the game. But in doing so, it corrupted your whole save file for that character. Yes, that's a real bug that I experienced. And yes, I was forced to start completely over again, the whole game once again. I didn't have the internet at the time, so I wasn't able to download any patch that fixed it. Still, it didn't affect how I felt about Oblivion, aside from holding my breath on each loading screen, but that's not the point. Oblivion had an effect on so many games in the genre going forward. Everybody wanted to dethrone Oblivion and be better than it was. However, I feel it's come at a cost. For being the pioneer, and being the one to start new trend and push graphics harder and show everybody what games were capable of being, it hasn't aged the best. Now, you might, and probably will, disagree with me, but I think time hasn't been too kind to Oblivion. The characters all sit in some weird, bizarre limbo where they don't quite look or act right. The fact that it's the same small group of voice actors doing all the voices without much change between them. The graphics have an almost perfection to them, if that makes sense. Like, it's a little too flawless. Does that make sense? And also the fact that it actually removed things from the previous games. But, and this is very important, I still love it. Do I love it as much as I did back then? No. Unlike the older games, I'm personally able to look past Oblivion's flaws, which is actually kind of weird when you think about it, that you'd think I'd have more of an issue with the older ones. I think it has to do with that weird limbo I mentioned, and I hope this makes sense. Oblivion didn't just change the mold, it crafted the mold, and because of that, it was the first to suffer from the aging process. Games built up from its foundation, learned what worked and what didn't, and got better because they were learning from the first of its kind, which was Oblivion. I believe the game had a massive effect on all games going forward, and I truly believe we most likely wouldn't have some of the games we have today if it wasn't for Oblivion doing some of the things that it did. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe I'm giving the game way too much credit. but that's what I believe. Going back and playing Arena and Daggerfall, you look at those games and you understand that's what games were at the time. You know what I mean? That's how they were. So when you go and play them, you understand that's how those games were meant to be played, and you don't really see the flaws. Does that make sense? And it's the same with Morrowind. Morrowind was what it was because of previous games, and it's aged well. Yeah, it's got problems, but it's still aged well. But because Oblivion was the one to start a ton of these trends and push the graphics to what they were at the time. At the time, those graphics were just fucking mind-blowing. Like, your head exploded and your eyes, burned out because of all the bloom, and you were impressed. But going back today, it because it was the first, it didn't age well. God, I feel like I know I'm rambling, but I feel insane. I feel insane. I feel like I'm not quite getting my point across. Even I'm having a hard time trying to understand what it is I'm trying to say. Look, I still love Oblivion, and I accept it for what it is. It has good quests, great quests, and even some boring ones. The expansions are great, even if Knights of the Nine was slightly underwhelming for me personally. The main story was good. The guilds were great, and heck, even some of the NPCs are memorable. Are there things I would change if I could? Sure, but everybody feels that way. That's what modders are and do for a living. I'm not really a reviewer. Hell, I'm awful at writing things, and I skip all over the place or forget what it is I wanted to say. I just know what works for me and what doesn't, and I do my best to figure out why it does or doesn't work. That's what these videos are, in essence. I'm just a guy playing a game and making notes and then just sharing his opinion on the internet with like-minded people. You might agree with me. You might disagree with me. And that's awesome. It's great that we agree, disagree, and have these... It's good that we have the conversation because we can learn, Some people might like something you hate. And when you listen to it, you might gain an understanding that you didn't quite have before, and then looking at it you go, oh, and then you have like a deeper respect and love the game more for a flaw it has, if that makes sense. If you love Oblivion, and I really mean love Oblivion, like you see it as a flawless masterpiece, game of the century, do you know what I mean? I think that's really, really awesome, and I'm glad that you're able to get 110% out of it. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm not here to shit on your opinion. If you like it, or you love it, that's down to you and your unique personal gaming taste. That got a little deep. Sorry about that. Also, something that was bugging me that I couldn't quite figure out until now, like writing it right now, like actually speaking about this, going from Morrowind to Oblivion, and then back to Morrowind for the expansion video, I noticed that there was actually depth missing, I guess you could say. In Morrowind, and hell, Daggerfall, it felt like no matter what guild I was playing or how far in the main story I always got the sense that there was something more going on just behind the scenes. The entire time I was playing Oblivion, it wasn't really that, Like, I feel like what you were hearing is exactly what was happening. Does that make sense? Like, I almost feel like if Morrowind or Daggerfall, Oblivion had its level of that writing that it did, something like the Mythic Dawn, if you weren't paying attention or didn't read a particular book a main character said for you to read, you wouldn't really learn why the Mythic Dawn is really doing what it's doing. You would just play the game and the missions as as given to you, and you just see a cult doing bad thing. But Oblivion isn't like that at all. It literally goes, the Emperor's like, I'm gonna die, and he dies, and there's nothing more to it. And going to see Joffrey, he literally tells you, oh, I'm a blade. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's, you know, and then you go to Martin, and then Martin's just kind of like, well, okay then, you know what I mean? It is written exactly how it's meant to be shared. There's nothing more for you to figure out. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no character playing two-faced. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe, like, example, maybe Boris himself was the one who let the Mythic Dawn know that they were escaping down the main tunnel. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't pick up a letter, I don't know, somewhere, or didn't speak to somebody. Like, they'd be like a drunk in a tavern would be like, oh, I remember him telling me about how everything is going to change now. You know what I mean? Like, little hints like that. I just don't feel like Oblivion has it, especially when compared to Morrowind. Like, I couldn't figure it out, but now that I'm thinking about it now, I now see the difference in writing. That's not to say that it's all bad. Oh, heavens, no. Just look at the Dark Brotherhood and its stellar writing, and some of the quests are just fantastic. I'm not saying Oblivion is like just like a complete write-off when it comes to writing. It's not like that at all. I just wish there was a little bit extra depth. If that's, do you understand what I'm saying? Oh man, this has opened up a whole can of worms, and I think my mind is starting to melt a little bit. Sorry. Look, I just wish it had more optional quests that paralleled the main story like a Daggerfall and Morrowind had. Does that make sense to anybody? Look, at the end of the day, this could all tie back in to not enough time or money or even disk space. I don't know. What I know, everything said and done, do I like Oblivion and should you play it? Yes, I do. Is it a flawed masterpiece? Yeah, it is. Does that mean you're not gonna like it? No. Does that mean you're gonna love it? Maybe. Again, it's up to you. It is up to you. Alright, this rambling has gone on long enough. Okay, sorry about that. Man, this video is long. Sorry it took me to get it out so late. As you can clearly tell, this is like almost 2 of my videos smashed together, so it took longer to edit, write, record, and so on and so forth. Up next is The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I heard that they're reforming the Dawn Guard in Skyrim. Vampire Hunters or something. I don't know. It seems like it could be fun. And, of course, I will always add it. If you feel like I have truly earned it. I mean truly earned it. Like, if you don't like what I'm saying, then I haven't earned it. But if you feel like I've earned it, please feel free to give it a little thumbs up, subscribe, whatever, you know, all that analytic crap. But only if I've earned it in your eyes. What I really want, and somebody in the comment, I can't remember who it was. I apologize if you're listening. You said that I gained something more valuable than an analytic. I gained an interested community member. That is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who might listen to this and go, I agree or I disagree, but I want to hear this opinion. If that's you, and you're joining for the first time, welcome in, friend. Seriously, welcome. But there you go. It's done. I hope you finished eating your cereal or your food or whatever it was you were doing while kicking back. And if you're at work watching this, then I hope it made work go a little bit faster for you. Peace out, pals. God, why was this so long?